Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Camilla Cava Food Photography Podcast, a place where I interview talents in food photography industry to learn ins and outs of a business to help us grow our careers as food photographers. Today I'm speaking with a lovely food photographer, Ingrid Hofstra. I found Ingrid through her gorgeous travel food photography images, and I couldn't just wait to speak to her. Not only because of her beautiful portfolio, but also because this talented photographer has been published in magazines like Ellen Eten, National Geographic, and Harper's Bazaar. So I thought she'll have lots to tell me, and indeed the stories I heard from Ingrid were amazing. I cannot wait to speak to her again, but in this episode we put a lot of attention to a completely new topic for me, travel food photography. Ingrid shares with us how this game works, and I think it's extremely fascinating. So let's dive into it. Hi Ingrid.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the podcast. I'm very, very happy and excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And so for the listeners that might not know you, would you mind giving a short introduction who you are and what do you do?
Sure. Well, I'm Ingrid, 30 years old. I live in Hilversum. I'm a food photographer and writer. I work for chefs, culinary businesses, publishers, magazines, and I think most of my work is photography, and sometimes I combine both of them. So I write and photograph for a magazine or a book, for instance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of editorial work.
Yeah, I'd say maybe 60-40%, like 60 commercial, 40 editorial. Something like that. It differs from month to month.
Oh, that's super exciting, man.
Yeah.
Because aren't these like completely different type of photography projects, or?
Yeah, I'd say so. You know, when you work for a commercial client, that person knows quite well what he or she needs. Mm-hmm. So you get a much more clear brief. Whereas with editorial assignments, I think there's a little bit more creativity involved from the photographer or writer themselves. But yeah, I like changing between both of them, like doing the one day doing commercial work and the other day doing something editorial. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's a nice mix. And also if you do something commercial, sometimes the client has a very specific goal and it's something that teaches me something new as well. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. Yeah, it's good to get out of your comfort zone every now and then.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super exciting. So how did you become actually a food photographer?
Well, that's a funny story. In 2012, I started working at the NOS, the Dutch news. Mm-hmm. I was working there for around 4 years, and in that time I had to do night shifts, evening shifts, morning shifts, and alternate between all of those. And I got quite tired, so I thought maybe I should start eating a bit more healthy, maybe I should start baking more, and at the same time I also felt a lack of creativity. It was a nice job, but I didn't really have the feeling I was making something, and by baking and cooking that changed a little bit. And then a friend of mine, she had her own food blog, and I thought that was a very interesting phenomenon. I never heard about that. But then I started Googling and found all these Scandinavian American food blogs, and I was so intrigued by the beautiful photography. And I thought, okay, if I am going to start a blog, if I'm going to start baking and cooking more, maybe I can write about that on a blog, so I can also write a bit more creatively, in contrast to what I had to do in my job. And maybe I can also start taking gorgeous photos, because how difficult can it be, right? You just take a photo with your phone or buy a basic camera, and that's it. Mm. And then quickly I found out it's not that simple, of course. But I kept practicing, and slowly that blog became a bit bigger. Or actually on Instagram I got a few followers, and that started developing. And a few years later I actually quit my job and slowly became a full-time photographer in the first place. And I think 1.5 years later I started writing also again, because I missed it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's how it started.
Right. And how would you say you became such a good photographer? What were the
I think I was very open to learning a lot. Your dog is very sweet, by the way.
Thank you, Miles.
No, it's good to have some company. So I think one of the most important aspects if you're new to doing something is do it with a lot of passion. Do it because you love it. And I never thought of it becoming my job for a long time. I just thought of it as a hobby. But I did want to be very good at it, because if I do something, I like to be very good at it. So I asked people who were already doing photography professionally, like Suus of Foodbandits. I attended one of her workshops years back, I think 4 years ago or something like that. Maybe I think even 5. And she taught me. Well, one of the things that stuck with me was always pay attention to the lines. Like she and her husband, I think they hate it when the lines are distorted in a photo. Right. And that was the first things that started, what was ingrained in my mind, like make sure your lines are not distorted. Or it has to be a conscious decision, of course. It can be a style choice. But also that you make sure, from another photographer, he taught me while I was on a trip for Fair Trade Netherlands in Sri Lanka. I won that trip as a blogger, but there was a professional photographer, and I asked him everything, like, what does this button do? And if I press this button, what happens? And how can I make the background blurry? Like the super basic questions. I'm never afraid to ask a stupid question.
That's good though.
That helped me a lot. And there were some American photographers I was really, really a big fan of, and Eva Cosmas. She organized a workshop in Iceland, and I was very straightforward, and I asked her, can I come and help? I don't have the money to pay for a workshop, but I'm willing to do all the dishes that have to be done. Yeah. And if only I can come. And she said, of course you can come. Wow. And that kind of things really helped, because I was a newbie, a beginner, but they took me in and helped me. Amazing. And I think, even though this is a job you do by yourself, you really need other people. And always make sure you do it because you like it, not because you want to earn money right away or something like that.
Amazing. Yeah. And not to be afraid just to ask. Yeah. It doesn't hurt, huh?
Because you can't find out everything by yourself,
No, for sure. Wow, right. That's very exciting. And how long have you now been photographing?
I started my blog in 2014, and in the summer of 2017 I started doing this full time, starting my business. And that's a little over 2.5 years now full time.
Full time, right.
And 5.5 years as a hobby. Yeah.
Ooh, how exciting.
Time flies. Yeah.
I know. I keep forgetting how long I'm photographing now, because it keeps seeming like 2 years, but I think it's more than that. Yeah. But it's just, time is stuck in my head.
It's weird, right?
It's funny.
That goes, yeah.
No. Okay, and you mentioned that you indeed photograph a lot for editorial assignments. Would you mind sharing how does that game work?
It's a weird game, I can tell you that. It's frustrating, because I know a lot of people would like, even though commercial clients pay much more money, let's be honest. It seems like everybody wants to be working for a magazine. Maybe it's like a dream to many people, and for me it also was for a long time. I remember when I was working at the NOS, at the news, that I was a freelancer there, so I could also apply for other freelance jobs outside that job. So I remember writing to Jamie Oliver magazine, which still existed at that time, and they were interested in my portfolio, but they say, back then I didn't have any culinary experience at all. So they said, you lack that culinary experience, so we cannot hire you. Also, there's almost never a free spot here. That's just very hard in this business. And I thought, this will never work out. But then, after I'd been photographing for, I must say, I think 6 months or something, full time, like when it became my job, I found out that I could go, or actually it was a bit before, I was invited by Visit Faroe Islands. And I had an assignment on the Faroe Islands, which is a group of islands between Scotland and Iceland. And the story I created, I could sell to Financial Times in the Netherlands. They were interested in the story, and it was kind of luck, actually. Sometimes you need a bit of luck. I just wrote to them, like, I think I have a fascinating story. There's this Michelin restaurant there. I know the chef. I can go back to interview him. Are you interested? And they said yes. But we'll not guarantee anything until we've read it. So just go ahead and make it. And that was for me possible because Visit Faroe Islands sponsored my trip. I didn't get paid for the trip or anything. But I did get paid for selling the article. But then my big dream was actually to write and photograph for Ellen Eten, Elle Food.
Yeah.
And I wrote to them and I said, can I contribute to your magazine? And I think it took a while before I heard something back. And then in the meantime, I contacted Visit Palm Springs or Palm Springs Tourism Office, something like that, because I was really interested in making a story about Palm Springs. My background originally is a bachelor's in American Studies. I've lived in the US for a short while, did my internship there for the news, and did a semester abroad a long time ago. And I'm very interested in the food cultures over there. And in Palm Springs, I heard they were doing a lot with desert-inspired food, like cacti and tropical flowers. And where it used to be kind of a place for elderly people, and it was kind of out of fashion, it now was quickly becoming something new, something else, still finding that old feeling, but well, long story. So that's what I actually wrote in my email to Elle Food, and they said, well, go ahead, you can make it, but we won't promise anything.
Also, right.
But then I wrote to Palm Springs.
Yeah.
The story will be published in Elle Food.
Uh-huh.
So this is kind of a secret, but sometimes you have to be, I think you have to be a daredevil a little bit, you know? Because it almost never happens when you just start out that a magazine will say, okay, of course we publish something of a person we never read something of. We don't even know your photography that well. We don't know your writing. So of course they will not say, yeah, we will buy that piece. So you have to gamble a little bit. And then I went to Palm Springs, got back with all the material, and then they said, okay, we like the piece, but if we also have to buy the photos from the photographer, then it will cost us too much money, so we won't publish it. And I had to tell the editor-in-chief, but I'm also the photographer.
Right.
I wrote the piece and I took the photos, and she was all like a bit confused, like, huh? How? So then I thought, something is wrong in my communication, you know? People don't understand that I do both.
Yeah.
So I transformed my website. I made sure people were aware that I was actually doing both for editorial clients. It was also possible to just hire for the photos, but I could do both. She decided to publish the piece, and after that she asked me every month, every 2 months, when there was a new issue, if I could publish something. I came with my own ideas, she had things, and
that's nice.
The ball just started rolling. After that, I did the same thing with Harper's Bazaar for a piece in Japan, and now I'm also working for National Geographic Traveler.
Wow.
And yeah,
that is so exciting.
Suitcase magazine, so different clients.
And then those other clients also approach you, or did you approach them with this story?
I read a few days ago from a well-known photographer in England, Toby Mitchell, and he was answering a few questions on Instagram. And one of the questions was, what happens if you do acquisition? And he said, well, 9 out of 10 times or 8 out of 10 times I get a no, or often not even an email back, and that's super normal, even if you're experienced, or I don't know if you can relate, but it's not like when you're a successful photographer that everything just comes automatically, or everyone says yes immediately. So you still have to hustle and have to send out pitches all the times and make them believe in your ideas. And sometimes they come with ideas like editor-in-chiefs, or they have a request, or they are just in need of something,
right,
and you happen to be in the right spot. Because last week I got an email from The Guardian. They have a culinary magazine, and they were just asking, are you in Amsterdam this week? We need photos of a restaurant. Can you help us out? And then, of course, I email back, yes, I am. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But that's not normal. It still involves a lot of hustling and selling
reaching
yourself.
Out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you just sell out with already prepared story, a pitch?
No, almost always it's a pitch of an introduction plus the idea, how it would actually how it would look like when you finish the story. And also editorial assignments. I don't know if people know this, but that's more of a passion project because it doesn't pay a lot.
Right.
Magazines, publishers, they don't have a lot of money. So you have to make sure you love it, because if you calculate how much time goes into it and how much they pay you, it's never worth the time. But if you think about the investment you're making, you're traveling the world, you're learning, you're getting to know new people, you learn more about new food cultures, you build up a portfolio, maybe those photos will be sold again to someone else, like you always have extra photos, extra content, which you put on your website, whatever. So definitely. It's kind of an investment. And
it's like a project,
so what is necessary though, I always contact a local tourism office, or maybe the magazine is already in touch with those people, that they pay for the flights and hotels and some of the restaurants. Otherwise it's just not possible to do it.
So it will be the locals that will pay you to basically promote the country or town.
And that's also a difficult subject, of course, because you have to make sure it's not like an editorial. You want to be honest. Then again, you always know that it's basically a bit paid for you. I always try to be honest about that in an article, that it's clear that we were helped, assisted by. But also I don't let them tell me what to write. I write my own thing. They never ask for a translation or something. I can just do my thing.
Oh, nice.
And it's fine.
So it's not only photography, writing, but it's also a big project management. Such projects.
Organization is key. I think big. If you're not good in creating a community, if you don't know how to work with clients, if you don't know how to communicate with them, how to hustle, I think you can just forget about becoming a professional or successful photographer or writer in that sense. You need to be business savvy, and that's something some people are instinctively like that. I wasn't. I needed quite some help. My husband is very good with that, so he helped me a lot, and slowly I'm learning. And I think it's also about finding what works for you and also not crossing your limits. Making sure you set limits, like that. Sometimes people they will ask for re-edits over and over again, or stuff like that. And at one point you just have to make sure, like, this is my decision, this is my creative decision, and this is how we're going to do it. But that's something you're quite afraid of saying when you just start out, right?
Definitely,
in the beginning it's yes to everything.
You want to make clients happy.
So I think I became overworked a couple of times in those 5 years or something like that.
But you were ready to say no.
After that, after you've been overworked and tired at home and crying on the couch like, Jesus, I don't know how to manage this. And then you think, okay, I have to make sure that it's clear to everyone what I will and what I can't do. And communication is key.
Wow. No, this is a completely different world to me. The editorial travel photography.
It's weird.
It's
but it's a beautiful job as well.
It sounds very exciting, like you said. A Michelin star restaurant somewhere on the island, and Japan, and wow.
The funny thing is, people who love food, wherever you meet them in the world, they all have the same characteristics in a way. They're all very passionate, humble, in a way, quite down to earth, and just very willing to help you share this story. And that's so nice. You do it together, and that's so exciting. That's very satisfying.
That's also all worth it for it as well. All the experience and all the meeting these interesting people,
just to get a more enriching life, to live a better life yourself, not even as a photographer but as a human being. It changes your worldview.
And do you go on these trips alone?
Yes, often I am by myself, which is an aspect which I don't really like. I really like to be around people, but it can be quite nice because in the evenings you get to edit some photos or write down some notes or even a transcribe an interview already. But lately I've been asking if a friend or my husband can tag along, because if you write and photograph, it also can be very challenging to be creative at the same time. We'll also have to drive and organize everything and interview people and checking in, checking out, make sure you still have all your stuff with you.
Yeah.
So a few weeks ago we went to Canada. My husband joined me for National Geographic, and we were staying in a few days in a city and a few days in a national park, and to get from one place to the other, we had to drive for 4 hours or something.
Wow.
So it was very nice that he was actually the one to be able to drive, and I could just also relax a little bit, and because I think when you're relaxed, that's when you get more creative and you get new ideas. And I've had some trips in the beginning that were just too much, and when I got home I was so exhausted, and it took me just a few weeks to become alive again, to feel okay again, and to be able to even write down what I felt, what I experienced, who I talked to. And I think in that sense, combining the writing with the photography can be challenging, but it's also insanely gratifying if you write down the story and it's there forever. Yeah, together with your stories. Every time I see it in a magazine, and when I see my story, like I also tell people at magazines, I prefer giving you both photos and text, because I think they can enhance and make each other stronger. When I talk to someone, when I would interview you, for example, and I would also be the one after that to photograph you, I already know so much more about your life. The photo I'm taking of you unconsciously will be different than someone who hasn't talked to you at all. Yeah. So even when I'm on an assignment where I'm just a photographer, and I say just here, just to make sure, where I'm the photographer and someone else has written the article, I still do like a mini personal interview to make sure who is the person in front of me. Yeah. Like, who is this man or woman, and what kind of life is he or she living? Yeah. So that I still take a good photograph of this person. Yeah. I think that's very important.
Certainly. Wow. That's also so exciting. And now to jump in a little bit more technical question,
of course,
about all this actually. So when you go on these trips, what equipment do you take with you?
Good question. Yeah. I try to keep it light, but over the years I've gained some materials. I shoot with my Sony A7 Mark III. I switched from Canon to Sony 2 years ago, almost 1.5. That was a big change. The first day I got that camera, I just didn't know what buttons were doing. Yeah. It took me like half an hour, like, where's the ISO button? Help. This cannot be true. The same evening I had an assignment, of course.
Oh no.
But I managed. So I have the Sony A7 Mark III. I shoot with the 24-70 2.8 lens. At the moment a 55 1.8, but I'd like to change that into a 50 because I'm missing my old 50 lens. That's my favorite. That was my favorite actually. And,
which one? 50?
I had a Sigma Art 50.
I have Sigma Art.
That's a beautiful one, right?
My favorite.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I go back to that one or to Sony. Also has a beautiful 50 millimeter 1.4 lens, and the Sigma one is just huge, and
it's very heavy. That's why I was wondering if you're taking such camera and lens on your trips everywhere.
Well, yeah, I walk around with my 24-70 a lot, and I'm so used to the weight. Actually, switching from Canon to Sony already made a big difference. It's much lighter, the body. And it was partly because I had a back injury during that time. So that was one of the reasons I started looking into Sony, and then other reasons helped too. But my Canon was still a perfect camera, but I really like Sony as well. I also have a 35mm 1.4 lens, a beautiful Sony Zeiss lens, and I don't know, it's just, I think every photographer has a different favorite lens, and
yeah, for sure.
With me, 35mm, it's like a love-hate relationship. I don't know, sometimes I've heard that photographers, the way they see the world always matches either 35 or 50. That's often maybe some people have even 80 that they enjoy most. But for me, it was always 50. So whenever I have a 35 on my camera, it's like, I don't know, the image is not working with my mind, and I hate that the lines are distorted, especially with food. I rented Leica Q once for a trip, just for fun, actually. And it has, I think, a 28 or 20, I think even 24 millimeters. 24. So if you would photograph a glass from the front, it's totally distorted.
Yeah, it looks a bit like, I know.
And you can't even do something about it in Lightroom anymore. No. It's too much. And so 50 is my favorite. So now I have the 55, which is fine too, but we'll see. I think 50 will be my next purchase.
But you feel a big difference between 55 and 50?
No, I think it's more the lens itself. I think that because every lens has a different kind of bokeh, like the onion rings, or the how soft the background is, how natural that looks. I think this 55 lens is just kind of average in that way. I like it to be perfect, or close to perfect. And then I travel recently. Also, I take my Profoto A1 speedlight, the smallest studio light in the world, they call it, with me.
You use that a lot then, or not?
I'm starting to. I've done a lot with. I was one of these photographers who always used daylight. And I'm a self-taught photographer. During my master's in journalism, I was taught how to use a camera, like film camera, and how to shoot video and everything. So I know a bit about technical stuff, but I was always afraid actually to use lights, and not because I think it's super difficult, but maybe it was just one more step I had to take, and I was just not willing to do that. Also, I love the way daylight can just give an image so much character. But then, what winters are like here, especially last winter. And sometimes you're in situations, and the more you grow as a photographer, the more high profile clients you get. And you have to be able to shoot in every circumstance. So I started out with this A1. I was very impressed by it when I saw it on a convention or a photo event, and I didn't know how to use it at all in the beginning, and now I'm slowly figuring out how to bounce the light into either ceilings, walls, or reflectors, or what the effect is like if you just use it on camera or off camera to give it directional light, or put it directly on your face, for instance. And I think the next step will be a softbox, an umbrella, and maybe the next step, bigger lights, but
little by little.
Yeah, but still I always want to make sure I maintain that intimate feeling as a photographer, that people know that with me you can just relax. I'm not setting up a whole room of equipment with 2 assistants, because for me that kind of photography just doesn't feel like who I am. And I know there are lots of photographers who do a really good job in creating images for campaigns, for billboards and stuff like that. And I really respect those photographers, but I don't think that kind of work, being constantly in a studio, for instance, also, that would mean for me that all the creativity, personally, would be lost.
Right.
And I just can't do that.
So the commercial assignments that you have right now, it's not super studio kind of assignments, but it's natural light.
Yeah, it's mostly with commercial clients. I mean, everything that's not in a magazine or a book. So it can also be restaurant photography, or for culinary businesses who need interior shots, or need their headshots taken or something like that. And I've done some work for instance, Alpro, and then I was the second shooter. The first shooter was the person who took the photos for the campaign shots, and I was the one who just moved like in between everyone, made sure I had the candid shots for social media. And I remember them actually sending an email, can we also buy some of your candid shots for the campaign, because we were actually looking for some candid shots and we missed those. So in a way, I think the campaign photos that used to be like the standard, that's all changing. People want more spontaneity,
more natural.
Yeah, and shots they can use both on their website and on social media and for a magazine. Like, we have to be super multifunctional, and our work has to be too. And I like that role. I really enjoy it, to be flexible and to make sure,
and creative. Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting thought also. I never thought about that way, but the game is changing in that kind of way. I mean, it's still there, of course, that super commercial studio photography, and it will never die out, but the brands are also looking more into, as you say.
Yeah, and still I would like to learn how to do a shoot like for a super big brand. I am interested in it, and I want to learn more about it. So I think only then you can really decide
and compare.
What you want to do, what kind of photographer you want to be. I think our job is also to keep reinventing ourselves. Like trends are so. Yeah, the word itself is already a definition of it. It's something that's only there for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So where we photographed everything on marble 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now marble is slowly disappearing from.
The clients are also saying that I don't want marble anymore.
No,
like,
it's been used too much.
Too much.
They need a different look and feel. And if you, as a photographer, are negligent of that, and you don't also reinvent yourself, you're losing clients maybe, or I don't know, losing work.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
And what would you say is a good way to look for those trends?
Well, I think if you're on social media nowadays, that's kind of a good way. I don't like to be on it too much. I think it's not very good for my emotional state. If I'm too long on Instagram, I feel redundant and not good enough, and I'm getting very insecure. So I think I'm very sensitive to those kinds of aspects of social media. But at the same time, you do see people trying new things, and you see what catches on, and you see, and also I'm also someone who just looks at what do I like, what speaks to me, what kind of colors, what kind of textures, what kind of shots. And I keep mood boards on my Instagram, like you can save those images. I keep mood boards, like I have one called Perfect, I have one called Restaurant Photography.
Right.
I keep track of the images I really find inspiring, and try to remember them, and in my own way reinvent myself as well. So social media helps with that, but also I think if you're a very visual person and you watch a lot of movies, for instance, or I really like Japanese anime, and it can really help inspire you in the sense that you look at certain colors or certain viewpoints, like how to take a photo. As I was saying, I think 15-20 minutes ago, that I really enjoyed the workshop with Suus of Foodbandits, and she really helped me learn to make sure my lines are straight. But now that I'm more of an evolved photographer, I also try to explore with photos where the lines aren't straight at all, but it was a conscious decision and it was a style choice, where I can see that it works as well. And if you see other people experimenting with these things, you try it yourself, and then slowly you're evolving. That helps for me.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I hope so.
No, of course. Very interesting. And okay, so I'm gonna slowly wrap it up. I was wondering if you have some inspiring food photographers or artists overall that you would recommend for others to take a look, also to get inspired by. Because I'm always looking for new inspirational sources, so I always ask this.
Like I said, Toby Mitchell, he's from the UK, and he does a lot of interior food travel, and his colors are always on point. It's very he plays around with natural light a lot. I asked him, he also uses Profoto every now and then, starts doing that more and more, but he uses this orange hues which you get at the end of the day to light his images, and it really works. Also, Chantal Arns, she's a Dutch photographer, and she does a lot of restaurant photography and wedding photography. Actually, that's something I'm not particularly interested in, but the way she also works with light and how she chooses her angles to photograph food is very interesting to me. I like the way she uses tables as lines in her images, that she puts a plate half on the table, half
right,
not.
Yeah.
That's something I really like to follow. There's a couple of photographers I've been following for years, like Nicole Franzen. She's from New York. She's renowned food photographer and travel photographer. She does a lot of editorial photography as well. I'm always very intrigued by people who have editorial assignments as the main part of their income. I think that's you must be super good, because it's not paying a lot. So maybe you're very much in demand, or maybe you know how to
negotiate
properly, or something like that. I would like to have this discussion or conversation with her one day. That's a few people, and
nice.
I have this book by Annie Leibovitz, which I sometimes grab from the I don't even know the word. Actually, I just take it and flip through and
to get inspired.
Yeah, to just see how she works with light. How
she photographs portraits, right? Or not?
Mostly people, and I've been doing that for a few years as well. And I think one of the most challenging but also nice things about portrait photography is to make sure people can be themselves in photo. And she's doing a very good job at that. So it's always good also to just grab a book, really a real book, and just flip through it and see what do you like about it. Oh, and Louisa Brimble, she's Australian. Louisa Brimble. She is actually a little bit like you. She also teaches her followers about photography and what she thinks is very important in composition. She reads a lot of books about it, and she's very good in posting stories about how you can have a better look at your composition and what rules you can follow that are not the typical rules, or the ones like the rule of thirds everyone knows. And she's very motivating and positive in that sense. I like it when people are positive and are able and willing to share their knowledge. I think it's very important.
Yeah. Nice, great. These are very great, inspiring artists. I'm excited to check them out as well.
Yeah, you should.
I didn't know any of them except Anna, because of masterclass ads. That's what I learned.
I'm curious to check it out. I did that masterclass as well,
Okay, awesome. And the last question then, where can the listeners find you?
I have a beautiful website, if I may say so myself. It's ingridhofstra.com. Just my name.com. And my Instagram is also Ingrid Hofstra. I think if you want to have a closer look at my work, just have a look at both. I prefer my website because it's really your own space, you can do everything with it. I always enjoyed rearranging my photos on my website,
creating portfolio,
and showing my work and my writing, my photography. But I'm also active on Instagram. Most days I'm there. You can always ask me a question. I get lots of questions about what camera I use, how I would approach a client, or if I want to share something about my upcoming travels or whatever. You can always DM me, and I will make sure to reply as soon as I can.
That's so nice. All right. Well, thank you, Ingrid, so much. It was so interesting to talk to you.
Thank you. I really like this.
Yay. Thanks. 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 Thanks.